It's very sad. Chris Stevens, Glenn Doherty, Sean Smith, Tyrone Woods, 2 of their families have called us and said, please don't take us down this path again.
All right, folks, that's Nancy Pelosi saying that 2 of the families of the 4 dead in Benghazi called us, I guess us is her, and said, don't take us down this road again. She's referring to the Select Committee. We'll talk about that in a second with Congressman Tim Griffin. But joining us right now is the Congressman. And Congressman, welcome aboard, sir.
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it, as always.
Well, no, always love having you. And please, what's going on? To update us on the recovery effort after those horrific tornadoes in your state of Arkansas.
Well, the recovery phase is underway, thank goodness. We've had an incredible outpouring of support from the neighbors and actually folks from all over the country have shown up down here, which is awesome. We certainly need their help. Red Cross is down here. Of course, we've had Secretary of Homeland Security visit. We've had the President visit. FEMA is in full force, and so we're truly in the recovery phase. You know, it's the challenge with these sorts of tragedies is keeping the attention on them, because when it's a news story, everybody's watching, and it's easier to get the support that you need. But these are not going to be. This is not something you repair overnight. It takes months, and in some cases years, particularly when you've got small towns that have little fragile economies. And so we're in that process, and what I'm trying to do is make sure that a month, 2, 3, 4, 5 months down the road, that it's still getting the attention that it deserves, and so I appreciate y'all.
No,
asking about it.
I got to tell you, living in the New York area, we don't have tornadoes. My only encounter with a tornado came when I was covering the Yankees years and years ago when they used to be in Fort Lauderdale for spring training, and all of a sudden we're in the clubhouse and you hear outside, it got pitch black out the windows, and you hear like someone's throwing garbage cans around. And Ron Guidry, Louisiana Lightning, of course, at the time,
yep,
who said, just a tornado touching down. And I'm like, what? A tornado? How could you be so calm? He says, I'm used to it. But you don't get used to that. Here in the Northeast, we get a snowstorm. It rains hard. We're crippled. But these people, I mean, we're showing the pictures as you talk. I mean, their lives are destroyed to a great extent.
Well, and here's the deal. EF1 level, which is the lowest level, EF2, are relatively common, but EF3 and EF4, and this one being a 4, they are not common in Arkansas, and the devastation that one of those can wreak is just really hard to fathom. And you can have a neighborhood where 5 or 6 houses are just gone, and then right next door there's a house that's untouched. It's a really it's a remarkable sight to see, and there's a lot of picking up the pieces to be done, and we're going to do it. Just keep going.
Well, we wish you all the best, certainly.
Thank you.
We'll keep abreast of how that goes. And Congressman, you heard Nancy Pelosi at the beginning there saying that 2 of the families of the 4 dead in Benghazi have contacted us. They're asking us, begging us not to go down that road again. I can't imagine if any of the family members had really wanted to make that case, they would probably have called John Boehner's office, because they would know Nancy Pelosi has nothing to do with this, establishing a select committee. But I'm sure that you're all behind that committee. Do you think they're going to get the answers eventually that we're all looking for?
Well, look, I think if anybody can, Trey Gowdy, good friend of mine, used to sit next to me on Judiciary. If anybody can, he can do it. He is highly intelligent. He is aggressive, and he is exceedingly fair and just a good guy. I think he's a perfect choice to lead it. I looked at the other folks that are sitting on that panel, and lots of really strong folks. There's some, I know Susan Brooks is on it. She's a former U.S. attorney. She was U.S. attorney in Indianapolis, and just some really sharp folks on there. So I think that if anybody can get to the answers, they will. You know, I don't know the background of what Nancy Pelosi said, but with all due respect to what she said, and again, I don't know who called whom, you know, we still need to get, yes, we need to be sensitive to those who lost their loved ones, but at the end of the day, we need to get the answers and make sure that that never happens again. And I think if anybody can do it, Trey Gowdy and this group can. And I think the reason the Democrats are torn on whether to join in, you know, because they can not join in and have their little political stunt, or they can, but they know they risk when the committee comes up with the facts, they're going to risk looking like they didn't care, which is true, and so that's what it'll look like. And a lot of them don't care about having a committee. I don't mean to imply they don't care about the tragedy, but you know, a lot of them don't care about having the committee, and I think they're worried about how it'll look if they don't.
Yeah. Yeah, probably. Let me switch gears, if I can, to the IRS, the decision to hold Lois Lerner in contempt, which was voted on the other day, last week. John Boehner said over the weekend that they will not put her in the House jail, even though that jail, I don't believe, is in the House itself, but it's up to Eric Holder. What's going to happen with Lois Lerner? I mean, my opinion is, and for what it's worth, which is not much, is that she doesn't feel any need to get out there and cut a deal and get immunity or anything, because she knows Eric Holder's not going to do anything.
Well, I think, you know, I missed that vote because of the tornadoes, but I certainly would have supported it with my colleagues. But look, I think this is always the challenge. I was a staff counsel on the House Government Reform Committee when we held Janet Reno in contempt on that committee, and you know the issue of holding individuals in contempt, first by a committee, then by the House, always runs into this same wall, which is separation of powers. As you know, the decision whether to prosecute or not lies with the executive branch, and so this is where we always end up on these things. Ultimately, ultimately this becomes a political matter in the sense that the American people have to feel strongly enough for there to be political consequences to this type of action, because technically we can't prosecute anybody. That's not what the legislative branch does. You know, these different roles for different parts of the government were set up for a reason. The founders spread the power out.
You mean separation of powers, the concept
right.
that the president doesn't always seem to understand?
That's right. You know, the founders were scared of too much concentrated power, and sometimes it gets frustrating when you're a part of the government and you want something to happen now. But the founders felt that bold government action was more scary than inaction, and that's why they sort of spread it all around. And so, you know, I think ultimately we just have to continue to bring attention to it. And I will tell you, the Ways and Means Committee upon which I sit, our investigation is not through. And there's more and more to come in terms of the broader investigation, and we'll have to continue to shed light on this. And you know what? Ultimately, Americans can express their displeasure or agreement at the ballot box in November. If we had the capacity to prosecute certain executive branch officials, I'm sure that'd be something that we would pursue within our powers, but that's not within our powers.
Right. No, I'll tell you. And, you know, if we had a media in this country, Congressman, that was in the least bit fair, or at least tried to pretend to be fair, because if this were a Republican administration going after, you know, liberal groups the way this had all occurred in reverse, oh, my goodness.
Right, right.
Oh, my goodness. Hey, Congressman, always great to talk to you, sir, and keep up the great work you're doing for your people back home with the tragedy of the tornadoes. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for asking,
My
and
pleasure.
we'll talk soon.
Okay, thank you. All right, that's Congressman Tim Griffin, ladies and gentlemen, Ways and Means Committee member. Yeah, I mean, you know, so much to talk about, but these people's lives, you know, we complain about the weather. You know, the news in the tri-state area here in New York, when there's 2 inches of rain, that leads the newscast. And, oh, people are slipping and sliding. Try living where these tornadoes are frequent and dealing with that. That's a wake-up call. All right, folks, we're coming back with Gimme 5 on the Steve Malzberg Show.